Okay, welcome to the first quarter of calendar year 2021 circulation committee meeting. It feels like it's been a while since we met. I'm going to post the link to the agenda in the chat as soon as I get it open. And that way, if you didn't see it when I posted it earlier today, here it will be. We don't have any action items on the agenda today, no policies that are ready for a vote or anything, but we do have a lot of potential discussion topics which may kind of help. And I have noted, where the subcommittee's kind of planning to go next in terms of policy review and stuff. So having some discussion will help us know where to go. I did forget to leave one, to include one very important point on the agenda, which is an introduction. I will ask our new member services staff member, the new member services user experience coordinator, Tony Hahn, if he would briefly unmute himself and introduce himself, that would be great.
Hi, everybody. I'm Tony. I just moved to the Peoria area, and I just started a little while ago here at RSA. And as Anna said, I'm part of the member services team. I've, about 10 years or so working in public libraries in the Chicago area. I'm not terribly, I'm a newbie when it comes to using a lot of this technology, but I'm also pretty, I have a background in technology and websites and things like that. So there's some things that are comfortable about it for me. And like the library lingo, I'm very comfortable with and everything like that because I've been working in libraries for a while. So nice to meet everybody, and I'm looking forward to working with you.
Yes, we're very excited to have Tony. And if any of you had, I don't know, questions about RSA Cat that you had been sitting on since Jamie left, you could start probably sending those in again, and we have someone to forward them to now, other than Kendall. So like I said, this is kind of mostly a discussion-focused meeting, so I hope that you are all willing to discuss, because otherwise it may end up being a very short meeting, which, not that I expect you to object to that either, but I am hoping to have at least a bit of discussion about some of these topics. As I said, this meeting is being recorded, so it will be posted later. So if you do have to duck out early and one of the later agenda items was something that really interested you, you won't have to miss that discussion. So the first topic I do have is sort of the new cards for kids, cards for disabled veterans, the kind of increased sort of, I don't know how to put it, encouragement from the state library to maybe look at providing e-resource only cards and things like that. So, I mean, for one thing, I would just kind of like to hear from you. I know some libraries, depending on whether you have a lot of unserved areas nearby or not, this is going to be a bigger issue for some of you than for others of you. But if anyone does have any anything you'd like to share about kind of what your plans are in your library, whether this will be changing anything in terms of your practice, whether, basically, whether will this affect you, what are your plans? Are you writing internal policies for this or anything like that? So I'm going to start by opening this up to discussion about things of that nature. So please unmute yourself and jump in. Or if you are unable to, speak, I'll keep an eye on the chat window as well and try to make sure to, share if any excellent points are brought up there.
I guess we're not writing policy or anything. I did bring all this up to Lexi to take to the board or whatever, but we really liked the comp e-use cards when we were closed, and so like we're not issuing those right now, but if we have to close again, like we really like it. And I also like, I guess I just haven't had like a direct experience with
Mhm.
either of these demographics yet, but I mean, I think it's, I wouldn't be shy about using it.
Right, right. All right. Well, I'll contribute a little, just a bit about the kind of internal RSA discussion, and some of the topics that came up at the last subcommittee thing. One thing, one topic of discussion is, should we use a special user profile for these accounts, or does one of the existing user profiles serve our purposes? And the profile that kind of comes closest, because I think these are, unlike the non-RSA reciprocal accounts that don't allow holds other than local holds, these are supposed to be kind of full-fledged cards. So we're looking at, because the kind of alternative would be to use the taxpayer card, which automatically applies the $999 fee, and then you adjust it to be your own, tax rate thing, whatever you call that, your own amount for a taxpayer card. We're thinking that using that for these types of accounts will create confusion, not just when they register, but then whenever these cards expire, it's going to automatically try to apply that $999 fee. So we probably don't want that to happen. So we're currently at RSA, and feedback from this committee, and possibly also from users group, will probably kind of come into this decision of kind of how we set this up. But we are going to be looking at adding specific user profiles for these. For now, if you have to set one up and you want to use that taxpayer card, just put a note in there. I would say call it cards for kids or cards for disabled veteran, or put some keywords that you could search for in the notes field. And then once we kind of have a new user profile set up, we can help you move those, find those accounts and move them to that profile once we have it all set up and determined what it is. But we're also thinking that since this may be a statistical area that libraries may at some point want to track, we'll probably set it up as like, cards, we'll come up with a name for it, but we'll probably do, like a cards for kids and then a separate one for the kind of disabled veterans, profile. The other thing is the e-resource cards. As many of you I'm sure remember, at the beginning of the shutdown and everything, we started having people just use the CompUse profile for those, which is great. But between this and the ongoing need to do things primarily online, we are starting to kind of think, okay, we need a maybe slightly more permanent solution than using the CompUse profile, which could also be the in-building computer use account for some libraries, and that maybe needing to differentiate that is going to be something. So we will probably be adding something like we'll probably do both a juvenile and an adult, but like a juve online only and an adult online only profile as well. So stay tuned for more information about those, once we have them set up and you can start using them and things like that. And then if you were someone who, like Carrie mentioned, had been using CompUse in the meantime, let us know, because we can probably, do some reports for like which CompUse cards were created between these dates, to bulk change those, maybe, or if there's just a few, manually change them over to one of those other profiles, that way you'll be, consistent and all that good stuff. So just so you know, those things are coming. We may talk more at the users group, or you may just get an email blast saying, okay, we're ready, here are the profiles. But just in both things, we kind of were like, I think this does warrant having specific user profiles for these things, so that when, say Peoria does reopen and is, using their CompUse cards, like not just reopen, but it starts letting people in the computers again, we can kind of tell whether it is a Peoria computer user versus a, Washington e-resource user or something like that. I mean, in theory, we'd be able to tell anyway, but you know what I mean. I keep the profiles a little bit straight. So that's kind of it for that. Does anyone have any other discussion about that? I don't want to cut off discussion.
Anna, I would love to know how people are verifying that someone is a veteran.
If anyone can share, I know I've heard from some people, they're just kind of looking at the tax bill and looking for that zero, if you are exempt from paying taxes.
So
Well, yeah, go ahead, Rebecca.
this is Rebecca from Farmington. My husband is 100% disabled veteran,
Mhm.
and we actually get, he has a letter that he receives from the VA that when we have to provide it for like our taxes, and things like that, it has to be updated every year. So he gets a new letter every year from the VA. So that's what I would suggest requiring, is that they have their letter that documents that they're whatever level disabled. I don't know what, I can't remember what this one is, like what percentage disabled we're wanting to do for the free cards, but they have like 30 to 70%, 80%, whatever, but it'll say on their letter.
Excellent. That's good to know. Thank you, Rebecca.
Thanks, Rebecca.
Yeah. Pull up the additions to see. That, it phrases anything specific in this. Of course, straight to the thing. Sorry, I'm just trying to find the correct section of the thing. If anyone does have this handy, drop it in the chat. But meanwhile, I'm going to get to the right page here of the register. Okay. Okay, let's see what it says about if it says anything about, well, that just focuses on the cards. Okay, qualifying veterans or surviving spouses must present documentation from the county where they reside that indicates their residence is exempt from paying property taxes. Let's see. The non-resident fee shall not apply to veterans with a service-connected disability of at least 70% who are exempt from paying property taxes on their primary residence. So that's how it is phrased in the thing, for what that is worth.
Yeah, and like we have to provide that documentation to the county in order to get our property taxes changed. So
okay. And like on your tax bill, this is maybe a silly I have no idea. Does it note like that's the exemption on like the tax bill or anything? I'm just curious.
I'm trying to remember if it notes it on there. I mean, we get the tax bill still, but it'll just say 0.
Right.
I can't remember. I'd have to go look and see if it does or not.
I was just curious, because then that would be another document.
Yeah, anybody who really is a 70% or higher disabled veteran, they should have.
They'll have the documentation and be used to showing it to people for things like this.
They should be, if they're used to getting their discounts or changes or things like that.
Awesome. Thank you. That's really helpful information, just to kind of know what the documentation might be like from the user perspective.
Yeah, like we have to use it for the states and park. Like if you were gonna camp at a campground here in the state, and you have to have it, and you have to get a special card from them. Same with fishing license, things like that. So they should have it.
Awesome. Very good to know. Thank you. All right. Where'd my chat window go? Just in case, make sure nothing has popped up. Nope. Okay. And Corey put the link for the Peoria County property tax website in the chat as well, which is also helpful, because you can, pull up the, tax bills for various things too. So, and I will add to that, I'll just add the link to where I was getting the wording on that, in case anyone else is like me and loses that every single time they need it. So anyway, okay. So the next topic I had is I just had a brief student cards review, just to kind of, well, the intent was actually that I was going to do a bit more research before this, I'll just be honest. But just to kind of review student cards and how you're using them and things like that, just because it hasn't happened in a while. So this is not a Anna calling out a library that asked this question yesterday situation. This is more a, occasionally I'll get a question that is sort of like, you know, I want to issue cards to kids in my school district. Should I do an intergovernmental agreement? Basically, will be kind of the question. And just to kind of cover sort of what intergovernmental agreements allow you to do. And then again, I would like to open this up to discussion of if you do have an intergovernmental agreement with your district, you know, kind of how did you set it up? Just because it is something probably right now is not a time that a lot of people are working to set one up, but we have occasionally, even during shutdown, have people ask about it by way of maybe trying to increase access to like ebooks to students in their district during pandemic times. So kind of, I'll start and then you go, will be the model here. But basically, what an intergovernmental agreement would allow you to do that you can't normally do would be, it would allow you to issue cards to people in that school district who do not live in an unserved area. If the people in the school district live in another library's area, this won't help. They would still need to get their library card from that library.
This is just students, not their parents.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. So sometimes we will have, you know, questions where it's kind of like, you know, I have a lot of people who come to my library, but really they live in another library's district, but I want to be able to give cards to all the kids in the school. So really the solution in that situation is probably to work with the other library and do, you know, joint reading nights at the school and sign kids up, or work with the library to separate out the cards that need to come to you and the cards that need to go to the other school. You know, there's other solutions there, but those kids are eligible for cards already. So having an intergovernmental agreement in that situation is not going to be as useful. But if you have a large area of unserved community that, you know, also feeds into that school district, that's when the intergovernmental agreement will really kind of come through for you. And that is where you would want to use the correct student profile, because that will automatically apply the correct expiration date, because those are year-by-year card, basically. So then with that, again, anyone who has had experience, you know, working with your school and setting up an intergovernmental agreement, you know, how has the way you work together changed during the shutdown, if it has, you know, or if you've only recently set up the intergovernmental agreement, I'd be interested in hearing kind of, because there is that sort of element of whatever it is, in-kind, how is it phrased? Not in-kind support, that's our grant. But there is that element where there's that mutuality of the agreement, that they're supposed to be providing something to the library basically in exchange for, you know, the thing. And, you know, what have you set up? Has anyone had a really good experience or a more challenging experience and lessons learned that you would like to share?
Well, Anna, you know, here at Peoria, we have the student cards for the West Peoria kids that don't have a library. How's it been going lately since the pandemic? I guess they're using their card. But, you know, we've been automatically renewing our cards, so they haven't expired yet.
Right.
But it seemed to be going okay. I mean, I haven't had any issues.
Yeah, that's good to hear. That was still kind of a relatively new program when I mean, I guess it had been going for about a year or something when I left, and so it was still kind of a relatively new thing. But I know the West Peoria situation came up a lot. So. All right, anyone else have? Oh, go ahead.
Galesburg has one as well. So far, we haven't really gotten much.
Oh, you cut out there.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me still?
I can.
So far we haven't really gotten much on the reciprocal end, but we sent out forms last year at the beginning of the school year for every teacher to give to their students. And we got more students signing up for cards that way than we had in the past, which really helped. And a lot of them already had cards, or they lived within the like city limits, so it really didn't need to go to them. But it helped in terms of getting more kids covered. And so far we've just kind of extended those cards with the pandemic and everything. And I think we're working on figuring out what the next steps will be, especially since the schools are kind of in that weird closed state right now. But otherwise it's gone pretty well in the aspect of actually getting cards in the hands of kids. Whereas parents wise, they like to use their cards, unfortunately, and run them up. But otherwise, we've had pretty decent experience. That's good.
If I remember right, at Peoria, that was kind of the big difference that it made, was that we could kind of go directly, sort of like collect apps through the school and distribute cards through the school, you know, which kind of made it easier, you know, for like kids who maybe couldn't get to the library on their own to get that card set up. And then when they came into the library, if they could get there with a friend or whatever, they already had the card. So that kind of made a big difference if it was parents who were having trouble getting their kid to the library to be able to do that step, you know, kind of through the school. Kind of made a big difference for us, I think, if I'm remembering right.
This is,
go ahead,
oh, sorry. This is Roxy from Morton, and we've had it now for, I want to say 4 years, maybe. It's been really good for us because we have a huge unserviced area that their kids do go to our schools. And so for us, it's been huge because we can go to registration and just register everybody. And then for in-kind services or whatever, the school actually purchased iPads for us, learning iPads that we then give the kids, well, their parents, if they want their kids to have iPads while they're in the library, in library use. Not now, during the pandemic, we haven't been doing any of that. We also, when we were in refresh and out of the library, the school district had a big basement room that they weren't, well, they were using it, but they cleared it out for us. And so we went down there rent free while we were out of the library. Then and during that long time frame of getting back in, we also used some of their storage facilities for some of our stuff during that refresh. And so there's been several things, you know, that the school has done for us. And the big one we ask for is that we get good, that they allow us into the schools, and that I think it makes them talk to us a little more. They've always been good, but we kind of feel like we have a little bit of we're doing something for your students. So now we want access to your teachers, to your classes. And so we have a little bit of a way to kind of, it just seems like it happens a lot easier now with that. So.
Awesome. All right. Anyone else want to share about their student cards or intergovernmental agreement or anything like that? Okay. On to the next agenda item then, which is Gmail accounts, pick lists, and clean hold shelf lists. This is the only scoldy thing on the agenda that I have, so good job, guys. Basically, the only thing, and I actually think I'm probably kind of preaching to the choir, as it were, with this, but just a reminder that even if you are primarily using the on-shelf items wizard to identify holds that need to be sent places, it is still very important to be having someone check your Gmail account daily-ish, because that's the only way you will get the clean hold shelf list. And that it is important to, you know, now that delivery is back up and running, to actually be pulling those items that have expired on your hold shelf and, you know, getting them routed on to the next destination or whatever. Part of the reason this is so important is also because this is a, you know, sometimes you go to do your clean hold shelf list and you can't find the item, and it's kind of important to identify that, hey, that item maybe walked out the door and we somehow failed to get it checked out, or, you know, if you're in a self-service situation, or maybe it's sitting on a staff member's desk. I certainly have never in my entire life placed a hold and forgotten to check it out and kept it on my desk at work for a month. Just these things happen. So I, you know, basically would just encourage you, you know, I mean, I know with quarantines and with pandemics and with curbside and with all these things, there may be times that you'll want to give people a couple of extra days. That's not my concern. This is items that are sitting there for, you know, over a week past the expiration date that haven't been picked up or claimed or checked out, or, you know, maybe they're not sitting there but haven't been checked out. So, you know, that's kind of the reminder there, is that cleaning the hold shelf is important. I suspect that a lot of stuff on the lost transit lists are actually things that, you know, were on hold shelves too long, basically. I am going to share a little bit. There is, I don't know, I'm kind of debating whether I should really get into this, but I've been trying to get some feedback on a new wizard that's available in workflows that I'm personally, my experience with it has not been super encouraging as far as this being a mind-blowing thing to start using. But I think that you are probably a good group to maybe start experimenting with it a little bit. Right now, it's not in your, you know, module list here, but if you go up to wizards and go to all wizards and go to circulation and go to holds, there's this manage hold shelf wizard, which may be behind a override. So if you want to start playing with it, let me know. And if it is asking for an override, right now, there's not going to be a whole lot I can do in mine because we don't have a ton of holds at East Peoria. But basically, this gives you a list of the items on your hold shelf. Despite what it looks like with these little check boxes at the top, it's only going to be your active hold, which is part of what makes this less exciting than I had hoped. But, you know, basically, you can look at the stuff on your hold shelf. You can click on it and you could modify it. You know, I could modify the pickup by date. You know, it's basically all the regular hold modification pickup information is what appears here. You know, so it's the pickup location, the pickup by things, suspension dates, things like that. So there's not a ton that you could do. And the other thing that I found very disappointing is that if you have, say, 200 items on here, my big hope was that you could select all 200, go to modify the pickup by date, and just modify all of them. But it turns out that actually, if you select a whole bunch and click modify, you have to make these selections for each item individually anyway. So it doesn't actually help all that much in that regard. So, but it does give you kind of a way to see what's on your hold shelf and if there is stuff. So you're still going to have to kind of manually do it one by one. And I think that may actually be easier to have us do for you with a report. And once the item has already expired on the hold shelf, it's not on this list anyway. So because it's already in transit. Anyway, if any of you get really ambitious and want to play with that a little bit, please share your experience in using it. And if you think that would be helpful for us to make kind of more widely known and, you know, put it in the regular menu so that more people can see it. Right now, we're kind of keeping it sort of semi-hidden. I don't think there's a ton of mischief you can get up to with it because, as I mentioned, it is kind of laborious in the sense that you kind of do still have to make the changes one by one. But it does exist, and I think that this is a group that kind of makes sense to at least know of its existence and maybe do a little bit of experimenting with it. Like I said, my experiences with it have been a little bit disappointing thus far, but maybe you'll figure out, you know, the thing it can do that is magic, and then we go, oh, that's what we need it for. And it is nice to be able to see that list of the stuff that's on your hold shelf. So, but basically, let me know how you feel about it if you play with it. Let me pull back up my agenda here. So the next discussion topic on this, though, is what do you do at your library? And this is not a quiz. This is actually legitimately a discussion. But what is your procedure if you go to, you know, you've got your library's clean hold shelf list, and you go over to your hold shelf and the item is not there? What is your procedure, basically? How do you follow up on that item and find it? Okay, I contact the patron from
right.
the, oh, sorry, I've got a chat response. I contact the patron from the hold was originally intended to see if they have the item, and then if they do, check it out to their account. That makes a lot of sense to me. Okay, then go ahead, whoever I interrupted. Was that Ariel, maybe, or was that Carrie? I saw the green, but I couldn't tell.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing.
Okay.
We follow up the same way, make sure that the patron didn't take it without checking it out first, and then if they have it, we just check it out to their account.
Okay.
Otherwise, we make a note of it and try and keep an eye out for it to come back in like a week. Otherwise, I think it goes into like a missing status of some sort.
Okay. Yeah. It would eventually go into lost trans, because as soon as that hold expires, it's automatically put into in transit status, which again is my biggest wish list of things I could change one day. If I ever can change that, I will. But right now I don't have that power, or I don't know if Cersei has a way to do that yet. But oh, you've got a question on Carla, I might have to do some investigating on that. I think they could go to local holds only, but I don't know if there's, I don't know. The school would have to make the request. That would be the short version. So if you have a school who's would want to turn off requests to public libraries, if they get in touch with us, we can work with them and see what we can do for them, basically.
Like Havana schools just told us
Mhm.
that they haven't been transiting any holds, but they
Right.
just told us like last week. So if that's,
and because they would be going to local holds. Like I
They're
know,
local
I
holds.
think some of the schools have gone local holds only, maybe. I don't know if there's any that are still doing holds to other schools, but yeah, basically, if you have been in touch with a library in that position, I would say, you know, recommend that they get in touch with us, and maybe we can adjust their temporarily or less temporarily, depending on what the situation is. Who knows? And then, sorry, I'm just getting caught up on the chat here. Okay. Okay. Oh, and then the other likely scenario is that staff was in a rush and missed the hold available pop-up message on workflows as other items the patron had. You're all checked out. Okay. Yeah, and so I'll check it. Okay. Yeah. So most people just. So I mean, that was our experience at North too. Was that most of the time the patron really had it, and we just called to verify and then got it checked out to them. If you weren't able, I mean, if the patron didn't have it, what would be your next steps? I mean, mine would be search my shelf and then call the library that had in theory sent it and ask them to. And then, so I guess really the steps are probably fairly evident to everyone. Once you figured out though that it's really missing, I guess the question part is, would you mark it missing, or would you just wait and let it go into lost trans status when that happens? This is the curiosity part. In theory, this doesn't come up too much. It just kind of grew out of a conversation that I was having, and was curious what the real practice was.
I used to mark them missing because then once a month I would go out and look for items that had been marked missing to see if I could find it on the shelf.
That makes sense. Okay, Lisa says if it's theirs, they would mark it, but if it belonged to another library, they would wait and let it go into lost trans. That makes sense as a kind of dividing line. Yeah. Okay. Cool. If they're requesting library marks in other libraries to my library, yeah, I would let it go to lost trends because of that. Let everything go to lost trends. Those all make sense to me. Cool. We were just kind of wanting to get sort of a read on what the general practice was. We were kind of debating whether this is something that we should, write up as a procedure or not. It does sound like there's at least some consistency in the practice, so we could kind of document that and make it a procedure. Basically, it sounds like y'all are all pretty much on the same page with it, so I appreciate that. Okay, the next little topic is just kind of the how pick lists work thing, and this is a little bit of an update, but also just since it's something that we get perennial questions about because pick lists are confusing to everyone involved, basically. So pick lists and the on-shelf items wizard are fed by the same report in workflows. So this means that the pick list reports, we've got them running at 5 a.m. and at noon, and those email to the Gmail account and then also update the on-shelf hold wizard, or on-shelf items, whatever it's called. The thing that has changed since the start of the pandemic, and this was since back in, I don't know, April or May of 2020, we added a 4 p.m. run of that report because so many libraries were pulling more often throughout the day because of trying to accommodate curbside requests. That one we're not sending to emails because we didn't want libraries to feel pressured to pull it, but we wanted it to update the on-shelf holds wizard. Now that the situation has continued this long, we're going to keep running that pick list. We're not going to be turning it off, but we are going to be we'll probably wait till after users group next week just so that we could give more people a heads up, but we're going to turn on the emailing part of it. So we wanted, and we'll send a listserv post for people who weren't at the meeting. So you'll start receiving that notice in your Gmail accounts as well. If you aren't picking that late in the day, just ignore it. Don't worry about it. Don't feel like you have to pull those items, but we didn't want to startle anyone with suddenly getting an extra pick list in your inbox. And have people be like, oh no, I'm supposed to, it's 4 p.m. We close in an hour at some libraries and now I have to do pick list. And, the next morning, get the one from 5 a.m. that day and do that one, or just use the on-shelf items wizard. So just so that y'all are aware, because this is probably a group that will be affected by that. But when you start seeing those in your Gmail account, don't panic. Nothing has really changed from a system level. You're just basically getting an extra notification of an updated pick list. So, okay. I'm gonna have a sip of tea. Okay, the next one, this is another discussion topic. And this is a kind of please share your internal policies, your internal practices, kind of how you handle some of these situations. I know we have talked in the past about age limits on juvenile cards. So we can revisit that part of the discussion, but also just kind of how do you manage juvenile cards? How do you deal with responsibility for bills? If it's a 3-year-old's account and they're being billed for an item. What about privacy concerns? How much do you tell the parents about what the child has checked out? And then also about how do you deal with different custody situations, or situations where maybe the parents are divorced and one parent has racked up bills, but then when the child is staying with another parent, can they get a card, or if their custody situation changes? Just those topics generally. I would be very interested in hearing what your library's policies and procedures are. I know that's very broad, but it's an interesting topic, and it's something that we have very few policies on at the RSA level. And if you wanted us to have policies, that would kind of have to come from membership. So so if you do want us to have a standard policy on age limits, get a sign and start waving it in your virtual background at every meeting. Let's see, we hear from, when we were a city library, age 14 plus was adult and juvenile cards were ages 4 through 13. And when they became a district library, they switched, 16 plus was considered adult.
Washington has 3 different age groups. We have juvenile, YA, and adult, and those used to be tied to movie ratings. But last year we did away with the rule of like barring people from checking out movies if they were not 13 or 17 or whatever. So, so for us, it's like 4 through 13 is J, 14 through 17 is YA, 18 and over is adult. I mean, we're not gonna change, like, we're not gonna do away with like the YA option just because, you know, it doesn't, it's not broken, I guess. It's just not tied to movies anymore. Bills and privacy, those are probably some of like the hardest issues I deal with. Like, we have like policy, but there's like, you kind of gotta treat some of it on a case by case basis. Cause you know, I mean, policy, you can't enter into a legally binding contract with a minor. So like parents will have access to like what is on the card or what they could, you know, like, cause if it goes lost, it's the parent who has to pay for it and like, or damaged or whatever. I mean, but man, sometimes like it's hard because kids also deserve some privacy. You know what I mean? Like it's just it's like, I know what like the law says, but like you know, like it doesn't always match reality. If that makes sense.
No, yeah, I understand. Well, and I mean, there's also things that are kind of judgment calls of like, if you're billing a parent for a, I don't know, a SpongeBob board book, you're probably not going to have any qualms about telling them what that bill was for. Whereas if a child is being billed for, you know, something about like abuse or something, you may not want to tell them that that's the item that was being, you know, there's definitely things that will go off that even if you're pretty liberal about sharing that information, in most cases there are certain things that are going to be like red flag things of like, I'm not going to tell your parents what you had checked out, you know, this time. Yeah, so it does look like we've got a pretty good, I'm just looking at the chat, we've got a pretty good spread on age ranges. Sometimes we have birth through 13 and YA 14 through 17 and adult is 18 plus, but then sometimes it's, you know, up to, you know, 14 and older is adult. Sometimes it's, you know, birth through whatever. Yeah, there's a pretty big spread there. 5 is the youngest a card is issued. Other people start issuing cards at birth. So I have a hunch that y'all probably don't want us to try to standardize age ranges because I don't know that y'all would agree on what they are based on what I'm seeing in chat. There's such a big spread in terms of that. Although we'll see what the strategic plan committee and stuff, and we'll see if something comes out of that. But I, based on what I'm seeing, there's not enough consistency for us to try to come up with a one-size-fits-all policy. And okay, 18 plus is adult. The only difference is what the cards can do is DVDs. Is yeah, and yeah, it looks like for some libraries the DVDs was more of a loss prevention measure than like based on like movie ratings, more just you can only check out movies if you're over a certain age period. Makes sense. Okay, that's interesting. Does anyone else want to share anything? Does anyone have a really great written policy at your library that you would like to share, maybe, you know, after the meeting, and if you'd be comfortable sharing widely? If anyone does feel really good about your juvenile card policy and your, you know, policy of, you know, who can sign a child up for a card, you know, whatever it is, if you would like to share that after the meeting, I would be very interested in any policies that you want to share. Yeah, I guess that's another one is, you know, who can sign a child up for a library card, you know, doesn't have to be legal guardian, you know, what is the situation? Yeah, all that kind of stuff.
Can I
Go
say
ahead.
something about that, Anna? Or
Go for it.
so I've been in the circ manager here for, wait, no, I've worked here for 2 years. Twice I've dealt with issues of either foster parents with kids or newly adopted kids, like, and like in terms of like issuing them cards, in terms of old cards from other libraries that would be on that an estranged biological parent would be responsible for, and it's tricky. Like, I mean, if like, I feel like if I've handled that twice in 2 years, then other people have probably also handled that. And I try to give as much access as I possibly can to the kid in question, like, and foster parent or newly adoptive parent then signs off on the new card, but I mean, I guess just like, have any of you like also ever had this experience and just either not knowing what to do or like run into walls with getting a car, I don't, yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's I mean, it's rough sometimes. Anyone? Yeah. And the thing I have found is it's definitely one of those situations where it's much easier to deal with when all of the billing or whatever past practice has been with your library than it is when, there's another library's materials and you can't, unilaterally be like, okay, I'm gonna wipe it out. That's always the thing. And it gets tricky. I will also share there's in the chat, kind of interesting stuff about privacy. And yeah, it's depending on kind of what your policies are in terms of, do you share the title? But, yeah, having situations where the parent won't even allow the child to check something out when they find out that the hold has been placed on it, that the comment is basically pointing out that it doesn't just come up in terms of fines and bills. It can come up in terms of holds and things like that. And I mean, and people will surprise you too in what they will or will not like allow a child to check out. I've spent a lot of time helping kids, doing readers advisory stuff, trying to find them something they wanted to read, and then having a parent, not permit them to check it out because it didn't meet whatever standards of what they wanted their child to be reading. It was a Captain Underpants and they didn't approve, or it was a graphic novel and that wasn't a real book, things like that. I don't know, sometimes I think it's just helpful for us to acknowledge as a profession that sometimes these situations are hard and sad, sort of, and just to be like, sometimes there are situations that we just kind of have to muddle through. I kind of hate that, but you can't have a policy for every possible situation. But if you have a really good one, please share it with me because I want to see your really good policies on this. This particular area is one that can get so thorny that I feel like I want to start like compiling, even if we kind of say this is not something that it is appropriate for us to have policy on at the RSA level. I would kind of like to have like a resource of policies on these topics for y'all to reference if you are running into issues, basically. Anyway, I'm going to launch a very quick poll with possibly the simplest aspect of this topic, just because the conversation I was curious about. I'm just curious how many of you use a YA profile, because some, it seems like, go straight from juvenile to adult. And sometimes, you know, you are using that YA profile for later teens. So I'm just going to launch a very, you know, two answer choices. If y'all would just respond to this poll, I'd just be curious to see, you know, kind of what the spread is on whether YA profiles are used or not. So you should get that. Ariel, I have used that tactic as well on the phone of I'm sorry, I don't have that information handy when I've gotten those questions. That's sort of, you know, I have definitely done that at the library. Oh man, this is close. This is almost a tie. We've got 48% use the YA profile and 52% do not. Yeah, and then Carl, you know, the follow-up of that conversation is, even if you said you didn't have that information, the parent is probably going to be with the child when they come pick up the book and is just going to not allow them to check it out then anyway. So yeah, it's rough. Okay, yeah, y'all are almost 50-50 split on the YA profile question, which is interesting. Okay, well, thank you for indulging me. I was curious about that. We'll stop that poll. Here, I'll share my results very briefly. There we go. You can see just how close you were. Okay. Thank y'all for indulging me. I was curious. All right. Okay, back to this. Okay, next thing is a pretty quick, just kind of a heads up. Sometime in the next month or so, we're going to have a little cleanup project for y'all, or maybe not so little, we're not sure. I don't know if I say zombie holds, do y'all know what I'm talking about? Zombie holds are basically situations where there is a hold on a record with only one item on the record, and that hold is not going to be able to be filled, either because the item is checked out to a discard user or is in lost status or something like that. Basically, it's those situations where there's a hold on a record that's going to be unfillable, basically, and you know, that could just sit on that item for the 300 days until the hold eventually expires. But that there was, until recently, not a good way to identify these, you know, and to let the patron know, you know, before that 300 days. Well, and most of the time when the hold expires, by then they've given up on the idea of it anyway. So with data control, though, we were able to set up a report that would identify these items, basically. Initially, we were just going to kind of narrow it down to items that were on discard users, you know, where it was, because in case you're not aware of this, one of the things that will block an item for clearing off your discard user is that there might be, if it's the only item on a record and there's a hold on it, it can't clear from the discard user. So if you've ever had items that are hanging out on your discard user, that's one of the reasons it might be happening. But so, like I said, I don't expect that to be something that people other than me necessarily are aware of, because I get like some of those error reports. So, but if you've ever wondered why this item is still on your discard user, that could be the reason. But so initially we were just looking at it from that perspective, and then we were kind of going down the road of, oh, well, we'll notify the discarding library that's why this item couldn't clear. But then the discarding library is going to have to call the patron's home library, so the patron's home library can contact the patron about how their hold's never going to be filled, because we want the patron's home library to do that, because if they're the only ones that could place an interlibrary loan for them, if that's the route the patron wants to take when they find out they're not going to be able to get the item. And so we were kind of like, well, let's try to do this so that we can notify the patron's home library instead and eliminate that step. And then we also got into the kind of, well, this is not the only time that hold's not going to be filled. If the item is lost, you probably want to go ahead and follow up with the patron and be like, hey, do you still want this? Do you want me to see about getting it for you another way? Blah, blah, blah. So anyway, we now have a report of these, quote, zombie holds. The initial report, like most of these cleanup projects, is pretty big. It's roughly 300 items. But once we kind of get it down, we'll probably continue to run this, you know, kind of like we do like the lost transit things, you know, on a, I don't know, monthly or so basis, just to kind of keep you updated so you can follow up. But probably in the next month or so, we'll send out that first list. And basically, it's going to be a big old spreadsheet, and we'll sort it by the patron's home library. And then, you know, when you get the list, you know, if you could just kind of work through the patrons at your library and work on kind of following up with them and either removing the hold if it's something you're sure they're not going to want anymore, or following up with them and seeing, you know, about placing an interlibrary loan or whatever it is. Hopefully it's not going to be a huge burden on any one particular library. Anyway, just a little bit of context and a heads up for when we do start that cleanup project. Again, we'll probably talk about this again in the users group, a little bit of, you know, how this is coming eventually. So heads up. So it'll just be another thing to kind of look out for and, you know, work through as you get a chance. Okay. So I'm just going to do a brief policy subcommittee update, and Carrie, chime in if there's anything else, but just kind of a where we are in terms of the next policies that we're planning to review are, we've started looking at the lost in transit and in transit items policy, which are kind of really both the same policy. So that's probably the next one we're going to be reviewing, which is kind of, you know, what happens to items that are lost in transit and what counts as an item being lost in transit as opposed to an item being lost by a patron. So that's kind of the one that we're going to be working on next, but kind of upcoming is the patron notes policy is also in need of renewal, and especially now that we have the pop-up alerts, you know, option, that's another one that we'll be working on in the near future. And then the renewal policy is another one that hasn't been looked at in a while. Some of these, like the renewal policy, for all I know, that might just be one that gets kind of spruced up and put on nice letterhead and sort of not much substantial changes, but sometimes we start reviewing these and we surprise ourselves. So yeah, we'll see. Sometimes we think it's going to be kind of a rubber stamp. Our current project, as kind of the subcommittee, is if you look at the list of circulation policies, there are some that haven't been reviewed since like 2012. Our goal is to kind of get that time frame down a bit. So we're just sort of starting with the oldest policies. And even if it's something that doesn't need changes and is just kind of a rubber stamp, move to nice letterhead, format it a little bit better, you know, have y'all approve the revision, you know, maybe that's all it needs. But we kind of just want to get into the pattern of reviewing these things on a regular basis, as opposed to letting, you know, almost 10 years pass before we look at them again. We just want to kind of have a review schedule, sort of, so that things don't get too far beyond us. And then of course, if something comes up, you know, because of a change, you know, from the state library or a change to workflows, and we need to, you know, adjust one sooner, or, you know, the strategic plan could, you know, as membership levels committee, you know, starts meeting, that could be, you know, something that we end up having to change more policies because of. So if other forces, you know, intervene to bring our attention to one, then we'll work on that one. But otherwise, we're just going to kind of continue to go through and update those as we can. So that's it for that thing. This may, like I said, this may be a short meeting. We'll see. Just a brief note on L2 accounts. Hopefully you've all had a chance to get into the new L2. I mean, you're registered for this meeting, so that seems like a good sign, but I think I also used Zoom for registration. So if you haven't, though, I would encourage you to get onto the new L2 and log into your account and just double check all of your information, make sure that it's correct. You may have seen that survey go out about a week ago asking for your preferred email if the email you used for your L2 account is not the one you want to receive email at. We know a lot, because L2 won't let multiple staff members use the same email address, basically. We run into a lot of situations where someone has used like a personal address to register for L2 and doesn't actually want to be receiving work notices and things like that at that email address. So unfortunately, we don't really have control over the L2 part of it, but we have kind of worked out a system so that in like our help desk, we can associate your preferred email address with you so that we're not emailing by default, because otherwise we would just be using your L2 email. So if you prefer to use something other than your L2 email address, make sure you respond to that survey and give us your preferred email address so we can get that updated. I'll in the meantime, while we're waiting on getting all those input and changed, if you do happen to get something at your personal L2 email address, we're sorry, we're working on it. But that may be why, if you did get an email from us, at a funny thing, because the way the new help desk works is it has an email associated with a contact, and right now the ones we were able to import, automatically to start with were the ones from L2 accounts. So that's kind of what that survey was about. But also I have found a few accounts in the new L2 where it's still got someone listed as like their previous position and, things that need to be updated. So it helps to just, that no one wants to get a call about like something that's not their problem anymore. Just if you get a chance, and just double check your info so that it's up to date and stuff. And also that way you don't suddenly find a problem when it's a problem. Then on that note, the new help desk is, as of January 12th, has been in use. We are still getting used to it, but it gives us a lot more ability to like log calls and conversations with people outside of just getting tickets, which has been nice. We're still kind of working on our workflow on that, but it also lets us like assign each other tasks and things, which is a nice ability to have. But again, we're still kind of working out some of the kinks. So, I think it took us about a day to drop the number of automated messages the system sent out by like 50%, within a day of us implementing it. We were like, that's too many emails. So hopefully you're now getting a more manageable number of automated emails when you send in a ticket. Hopefully you should be getting a, we have received your ticket message. And I think that may be about it. But my recommendation is to save at the very least the most recent email you've gotten from us at the help desk, because that's the one you might want to respond to. Like if you think of something else for the ticket, like, oh wait, I forgot to send you the item ID. You'll want to have at least one email from the help desk to reply to, even if one of us hasn't gotten back to you yet. So if all you've gotten is that first, automatic email, at least hang on to that one until one of us gets back to you about it, so that you have something if you need to update.
Can I ask what
Yeah.
might be a stupid question? Okay. This is, well, on behalf of our cataloger, Lori and me. So Lori feels bad because she wants to say thank you to the cataloging crew at RSA for helping her with everything, but I think it reopens a ticket or something. And I know like Patty and I have been talking back and forth over the last like couple week and a half, something about inventory. And it's like, I guess I'm trying to be polite, but like in terms of like, thank you so much. Awesome. Cool. Like, but if those reopen a ticket or like cause more work for RSA, then like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to make more work for you guys.
don't worry about it.
Carrie, on this new help desk, the other one, it was a little bit more of a bigger deal, but this one, it's really not.
Yeah, this one, it reopens the ticket. We get the thank you and we go, oh, cool. And then we have an option to just close again if it's not like, because the other issue was in the old help desk, if someone sent a new message and it reopened a ticket, it was really hard to see. Like sometimes it wouldn't show up in like your open tickets, and it was like in this weird sort of open, sort of closed limbo. So if someone had responded with a ticket of like, well, now I finished inventory on this section, we might not see that. So this is better. It's better for us to get the thank you and the reopen ticket and the notification. Then we can close it again. It's no big deal. But we don't want to miss like I have important follow-up,
Don't feel obligated that you have to send us a thank you.
We don't mind. We do not mind.
Well, no, like Lori brought it up just because she asked for she asked for a difficult cataloging thing, and like Rhonda got back to her like boom, like that day. And Lori was just like, oh, she's so good. Like I want it, like, yeah. So yeah.
we do not mind thank yous, but you're also not obligated. But they're easier to deal with in the new help desk than they were in the old help desk, so don't feel bad.
But at least I feel, and I don't know, maybe I'm not speaking for others, but my guess is I am. We are so thankful for all of you. So we want to make sure that we thank you for everything you are doing for us.
Well,
Yes,
we appreciate that.
cosign.
Well, and I will say that sometimes the thank you is nice just because as a signifier of whatever we did worked. So I will say that that's nice sometimes, because sometimes you're kind of like, I hope that was the right answer. But it's also okay if you don't have time. We are not tracking your thank you notes. We are not like the aunt who who is like kind of thank you note from Jimmy. Ooh, Timmy did not submit. We're not doing that. So they're appreciated, but not necessary. But also don't feel bad. They're easier to deal with in the new help desk, like Patty was saying. So. The other thing is, just because we've been making a big deal about the new help desk, do not feel like you can't call us and ask us questions. Give us a call. We will probably log the call in the new help desk, and then that way, we can tie it to an email. If if we end up sending you reports and stuff from the call, we can tie it all together. But don't feel like that means that you're not allowed to call us at RSA. Please call us. We're working from home and lonely and sad. Give us a call. That may be me speaking for myself. I'm going a little stir crazy. Please call me. So people who have called me can say, I will probably talk your ear off. So but anyway, that's kind of the updates on the new help desk. If you do notice anything weird, or if it seems like you're not getting a response at all, you send something in and you don't get the automated message or something, kind of give us a heads up, because that may mean something has gone kerflooey, Anyway, okay. So the last item on the agenda I have labeled questions/discussions/networking time. So if you have questions for us, great. If you have a discussion topic that you would like to put before the group, great. But also, if you just want me to leave the meeting open and let you chat amongst yourselves, that is also fine. It will be recorded, so don't talk about me, but but otherwise, this is kind of your time. Okay, I'm getting powerful. We are all zoomed out vibes. Oh, Patty.
I heard Peoria is opening all the branches on February 1st. I don't know if Cassandra's still here.
No, she had to duck out early.
She'll leave early. Yeah, so I did hear that. So.
Exciting.
Yeah.
Patty, Dunlap 2 is opening on the 1st.
Okay.
Oh, congratulations. Is this the first time you've been open?
Yeah, like, been.
For
well,
how long?
We opened back up at the end of June through mid-November.
Okay.
So we're going to try Tuesday and Thursday, 9 to 8. Okay. And then Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we'll be here till 6.
Okay.
See.
When are you opening?
Monday.
Oh, well, good luck. I hope it all goes well.
Thank you.
Yeah, wonderful.
We're ready. I'm ready.
Good.
Well, everybody take care and be safe and all that.
You guys too. Thanks, Anna.
Anyone else have any status updates on their library? Are you still curbside, back in the building?
Yeah, Galesburg is starting to open up the building.
Mm-hmm.
We will open up for appointments starting on the 8th, but we're not announcing it until then, just in case we have any setbacks.
Yeah.
But we are starting to open up for browsing for the first time. So we did open for appointments back in like end of July, and then we had to close, but we had limited to just computer use at that time, and we had just like barely started like new items for a browse before we closed, and now we're actually going to open up the whole library, but we're still providing the curbside service for those that can't get an appointment or just prefer the curbside service. But that's pretty much our status, and we're gearing up and rearranging everything again for that, and it's just exciting.
Wow. Yeah. All right. I might do another poll. So go ahead and talk.
Well, I was just going to say Washington's been open since we closed initially, but we didn't close back up. So we've been open since like late June. But with the walking back of mitigations and stuff, like going back to tier 1 or whatever, like the struggle to get people to wear and keep their masks on is real. Like it's just like it's like we got walked back and then all of a sudden it just became like every other person, put on your mask, pull up your mask, put on your mask. Like yeah. So I yeah.
Oh yeah, that's no fun. Okay, I'm gonna just do another quick little poll, just kind of what's your current level of service. I'm sure I didn't you know, cover every possible option here, but well, let's see if I can do this right. That's just the same. That's the same one. Drat. Never mind. Okay, here we go. Okay. I'm sure there's some options in between, you know, but for the purposes of this, we'll say full limited, curbside only, and closed. I'm just see kind of what sort of spread we've got. I'm assuming operating as normal is still like masks and, you know, limiting groups and that kind of thing, but like limited in building services would be what I'd say is like appointments or like only certain services. Okay. All right. And I think maybe the people who haven't voted are mostly RSA people. So I'll end polling and share. So if anyone was curious, that's kind of a spread on that one. So kind of an even split between limited services and full services, but the limited services are kind of evenly divided-ish between in-building and curbside. So, and I know sometimes that's just the logistics of your building is like, you know, I was talking to someone from, I don't know if anyone from La Harpe is on this call, but I'm not going to say anything, you know, that they would feel funny about me saying, but I know like the logistics of their building, like curbside just kind of doesn't work the way they're building and their parking lots laid out. You know, you'd have to go up and down a big staircase to like a parking lot around the corner. So, you know, like curbside is kind of going to be harder in that situation. Whereas you could maybe pull off some kind of, you know, limited in building appointments or something better. So that kind of makes sense that just the different needs of the logistics of your situation are going to be different things. Okay, thank y'all for sharing. I appreciate that. We did have a question in the chat that is, what are you doing to keep circ staff busy during downtimes? Because I'm guessing even for you who are kind of fully open to the public, is your traffic still kind of lower than normal, or what? And then we have comment of keeping circ staff has been busy, has been difficult. Lots of sorting and shelving. Some sounds like Pekin has lost some of their pages, so circ staff is doing some of those tasks when they're down, having downtime.
Even for curbside, we have not really had much downtime, so to say.
Okay.
Our curbside has been pretty booming, especially when we came back from a week of closure. Like, I think in 9 hours, we processed over 140 patrons of like holds, not 140 items, but like 140 actual patrons were served. And so like that's the highest we've gotten, but we haven't really gotten much less than probably like 100 a day. So for us, it's been pretty booming, even if we are closed, which is pretty good. So it'll be exciting to see how our browsing will be taken, like once we do actually open that service.
Yeah.
But we have been able to spread staff out to do more of like weeding projects, more shifting and facing, and just trying to make things look prettier. I don't know if that helps people that are looking for things that they could do, and just kind of trying to reinvent it to make the library a little more efficient overall.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, it makes sense that this is kind of a time to, if you had changes that you were considering making, then having a kind of break in how you were providing services could be a good look at it as an opportunity to do those things if you were thinking about that anyway.
Yeah, I was just gonna say Washington's about to do a remodel, and so we are like doubling down on inventory and weeding projects, but also like our children's department always or usually needs craft prep help, and we do that too.
Yeah. Well, and that was one of the contributions of the chat is virtual programming prep and make and take crafts. Apparently Melody had their interior painted and got new carpet in some areas, and then lots of weeding. Yes. If it's been a while since your library's done a weeding project, this is a great time to do some weeding. I'm always pro weeding just because I lived through Peoria's building project and the collections that hadn't been weeded in like 30 years and stuff, and it was kind of nightmarish. Please weed. Weeding is good for the soul. All right. Anyone else? Oh, Galesburg is about, got word that they're about 2 years away from a new building. Okay, we'll cross your fingers for you. So they've been doing deep weeding. Yeah, big time. I'm excited for y'all. I know y'all have been kind of needing that new building for a while, so I will cross my fingers for you. All right. Okay, anyone else have anything you want to talk about? Anything at all? Okay, I'm getting no responses, so I'm guessing that's a no, and that you do not object to the meeting ending a little bit early. So thank you all for attending. Thank you for discussing. Thank you for answering my poll questions. Thank you for all the hard work that y'all do on on your front lines and with the public and all of that stuff. Y'all are in a difficult position right now, and your hard work does not go unnoticed. Thank you all. But everyone take care, stay safe, please be cautious whatever you're doing and stay healthy. We appreciate you as well. So have a great week. And hope to see you again at users group next week.